Good morning. We're here with Al. Al, why don't you tell us about yourself, your name, your title, how long you've worked at OLHSA, and what you do here?
Hi, good morning, Elena. Again, my name is Al Patrick, and I currently serve as the Deputy Director for Community Relations. I've held a number of jobs here at the organization. I initially was hired in as the Summer Youth Employment Training Director, and we would provide summer jobs for young kids in the community. And at that time, OLHSA operated the largest summer youth employment training program. We would hire up to 1,500 kids every summer. And it's amazing that as I'm out and about in the community nowadays, I run into some of the old hirees and they say, Mr. Patrick, you gave me my first job, da 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 da. And so that's always a good feeling. But I also served as the senior age director. We had a program which we hired senior citizens 55 age and older and placed them at nonprofit organizations. And at the end of the training, we would ask that they do one of two things: either continue to provide the great training that they do and possibly hire that individual. In fact, when we first operated that program, we even had an insurance benefit for the seniors. And it was a very good program. I was sad to see when that program was transferred to another organization, but we had a lot of success with it. And, we've had a lot of good programs that have impacted a lot of people's lives in positive ways.
Yes, I totally agree. Um, can you describe how you and Mr. Ed Revis Jr. were connected at OLHSA and with some of the things that you did in the past?
Yes. Well, Ed Revis was one of my local heroes. I met Mr. Revis, I want to tell you, in 1982. I had two roommates from here, and Mr. Revis was their dad's best friend. And so we were attending college at the University of Southwestern Louisiana. And so Mr. Revis would come down along with my friend's parents and stuff. And so when I first met Mr. Revis, I was like, somewhat amazed because Mr. Revis had this raspy voice, but it was very positive. But it was a protruding voice that that he was a man to be reckoned with. And so, so when I first met him, like I said, his voice was very, very somewhat boisterous, but it was very confident. So I initially met him, and then after I graduated from college, I was working for the Pontiac Area Urban League, and I happened to run into Mr. Revis, and he said, "Oh, baby, what you doing?" And so, and that's kind of how he spoke. And so I had told him that I was working over at the Urban League, and he said that, well, I have a position available, and he said, I want you to come over and interview for it. And lucky enough, I was able to receive that job, and that was the Summer Youth Employment Training Director. And so, like I said, it was an extremely successful program. Another program that I initially started off with was called the COPE program. And those acronyms stood for Career Opportunity Program Effort. And what I would do is take young men and women who may have had some type of connection or interface with the local authorities, and I would get them employed by going to employers, asking them to take on these individuals for a training period. That training period, I would reimburse the local businesses 50% of the wages, with the intent that at the end of the completion of the program training period, they would take that individual on and hire them on a permanent basis. And there were some stop gaps in there to make sure that everything was flowing well. If they were coming in late, they would give me a call and I would go out and talk to them about the importance of being on time and making sure that they were dressed appropriately, making sure that they was courteous to anyone that came into those local businesses. Very good program. There's been a number of programs that we have ran over the years that I am just so proud of. And we continue to do that to this day, although, Mr. Revis has, transitioned, but we do things in his honor. And, the good thing is, well, one of the things is that many people don't know is that Ed Revis was not the first CEO of OLHSA. He was the second, but he was the most impactful. Mr. Revis was one of those guys, people would say that when he would walk down the hall, the building would shake. and so, Mr. Revis taught us the art of being successful. And, a lot of the success that he built was initially based upon developing relationships. And then the second part of that is to deliver on the things that you say you were going to do, or the things that was required within a grant to make you successful. And so those were things that, you never forget, because you knew that he had a winning track record. And that track record is something that most folks would look at and say he was awesome in terms of how he delivered, how he came through, how he impacted people, and how he made the agency a powerhouse that it is in terms of this community.
Do you have any Ed Revis Jr. stories that inspired you to be more invested in the community? Because you really sound like you're really invested in community action, but anything that really stuck out to you?
Well, the biggest story that I have with Mr. Revis is that his love for the community, his love for people as a whole, and his love to see people succeed. And so that's what it was all about. And that's the most important story that you can take away. It's not a funny story, it's a life story. And I don't think there's a story that's out there that's more important than seeing someone succeed in life. We have grown to the fact where we have probably right around 80 programs at this current time. But Mr. Revis always was a guy who, kept his finger on the pulse. He would have an ideal. He would make sure that the grants was written in order to receive funding, and then make sure that we did what we need to do to make sure that that funding of that program translated to the community, and that people were able to receive help so that they can maintain their families and feel good about it. And one of the other things that I really, really liked about Mr. Revis is that although we are an organization that provide assistance and help to various people, Mr. Revis provided help and there was no strings attached. And what I mean by that is often people are ashamed to ask for help. And Mr. Revis made sure that we went about our way to help people, and that when we were able to do it, they didn't have to feel bad or feel ashamed. We were simply, as an organization that was established, we simply are about trying to give people a hand up and help people to know that better days are coming. And that was all led by Ed Revis. And so he set that example early. And that's an example that carries through now, even though once he retired and we had additional or new CEOs, even with our current CEO, Susan Harney, we still believe and we are here to help people. We do that in the best way possible. And even though occasionally we may get some criticism because we may not be able to help somebody, but let me say this to you. OLHSA does a phenomenal job in terms of helping people, making sure that folks in this community get what they need, being a leader and trying to set the example in terms of what it means to be there for people, to have their back, to help them grow, to help keep their families intact. We do it by Head Start. We do it by assisting people with weatherization programs. We do it by helping people who are homeless, to provide them with an opportunity to provide them with a security deposit. There's a number of ways that we do it, but the most important thing that one can take away is that we do it. And we do it with pride, and we do it knowing that at the end of the day, we have one goal, and that goal is to make sure that we're successful in helping others.
Thank you so much about giving that description and about wrapping it back into what we do at OLHSA today. One question I have is, can you tell us about the service area that Mr. Revis helped to serve in?
In terms of service, Mr. Revis was very big in terms of the service that we provide to others. You know, let me say this to you, without the service itself, then there's not a real need for an organization like ours. That's what we're here for, to provide a service to the community. We serve both Oakland and Livingston County. We serve all of those counties, and we make sure that when folks need help, we are there to help those individuals. Now, you know, some folks have a tendency to think that OLHSA should do every single possible thing, when no one can do everything. But the things that we do well. And the things that we do with pride. And the things that we do, we make sure that individuals receive assistance from us, and that we try to address the family entire needs. And the thing about it is that providing service takes a special kind of person. And I personally feel that Mr. Revis, like I said, when we started off, I said that, you know, Mr. Revis was one of my local heroes. When you talk about this area of Oakland County and Livingston County, the Howe area, you know, Mr. Revis received recognition in Howe. Now, we've all heard some stories about what takes place in Livingston County, but Mr. Revis didn't back down. But the thing about it is that in Oakland County, when you talk about legends in this area, you know, people talk about, in terms of African American folks, people talk about attorney Albert Hatchett, they talk about Milton Henry, they talk about Judge Waterman, all rightfully so and deserve it. But when you talk about Walter Beach and things, men of this nature, you also have to mention Ed Revis, because Ed Revis was on the forefront of making sure that families who need a helping hand was able to get that assistance. They got that, they received that assistance, didn't have to be sad or ashamed about it. Mr. Revis made sure that the funding was there. He would go out. He had a personal relationship with the executive at Oakland County, Dan, and I can't remember Dan's last name, but you know, he built the relationships so that when there was a need in these communities and people came to OLHSA for assistance, we had the resources to address those needs. And we did our best to try to make sure that we helped everyone that came to through our coffers. It didn't matter if it was a family who needed food. It didn't matter if it was a family who, at that time, you know, at one point we used to, you know, help folks with clothing and shoes and things of that nature. It didn't matter if it was a child in the home who simply needed a job, or if it was some assistance that we needed to give mom and dad to make sure that they had a roof over their head so that the family could stay intact. It's all about the service. It's all about helping those individuals that need a helping hand. And we do it, and we do it well. And that was established from the forefront by Mr. Revis, because like I said, he was, especially at that time, you talk about some of the other organizations, you have Grace Centers of Hope, Oakland Family Services, Lighthouse, Area Agency on Aging 1B. Nobody had a conversation without any of those organizations and not mention the name of Ed Revis.
I love that. What can we share with people today about Ed Revis Jr. and that they can be inspired with and be leaders today in the community?
I think that people would be inspired to know that OLHSA has a strong legacy, and that legacy really was established initially by Ed Revis. The legacy continues. It continues through you and me and Susan Harding and our Head Start program staff and, you know, people that work for the organization. I tell you, as I am out and about in the community and I go to various meetings, I run into folks sometimes and they say, "You work for OLHSA?" They say, "I work for OLHSA." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm amazed at the number of people have gotten a start by working at OLHSA, and they talked about the good times that they had, the people that they met, and they talk about that leadership which was provided through Ed Revis. So I'm just proud to be a staff person here at OLHSA, knowing that we are, as an organization, we are about making sure we help those. And knowing that I knew Mr. Revis personally, knowing that I came in up under him makes me proud. And like I said, the legacy continues. And Mr. Revis was an outstanding football player as well. And there's a scholarship fund up at Central Michigan University in his honor. And so, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he being the individual that he was, I tell you, he still watches over us, and he makes sure that that legacy continues. And he made the commitment years ago to make sure that we as staffers are committed to making sure not that we do it, but we do it with pride and that we do it right.
Thank you, Al. Thank you for getting together with me this morning and for sharing some beautiful stories about Mr. Ed Revis. And we appreciate everything you do today in community action at OLHSA. Thanks so much.